This is J. Krishnamurti's seventh public discussion in Saanen, 1964.
What shall we discuss this morning?
Loneliness, communion.
What's that?
Loneliness, communion. And meditation. Communion. Meditation. I don't.
Loneliness, freedom and communion and meditation. And awareness.
Enlightened one, I understand that all ambition, greed, desire stems from sex desire, sex instinct. How are we to deal with this seemingly force of nature?
How are we to deal with ambition, greed and envy and so on, which apparently derives from sex urge? I don't know, do they arise from sex urge? I don't know. I wonder why we read at all. I'm asking this seriously, not flippantly. Why do we ask questions? As that gentleman asked about sex. Somebody says, what is meditation, what is awareness, communion, loneliness? Why do we ask these questions? And who do you expect will answer them? Is there a way of answering all questions, rather never putting yourself a question, but always be ahead of the question? Is there a way of finding out for oneself what is true? Not asking anybody, not looking to anybody, not following any philosophy, any idea, but actually finding out completely, absolutely what is true for oneself. Is there a way? Or must we always depend on books, on authorities, on some savior, guru, teacher, and always be followers? It seems to me to follow anybody is the most destructive thing on God's earth, including if you are following the speaker. I hope you're not. Is there a way of being completely free I would like to discuss that rather than the specific, particular things, like what is meditation, what is this and what is that, how is one to be aware, and so on, so on. If one can find the key for oneself and open the door, then perhaps we will never be followers. We will know for ourselves, not mere opinions, but the truth of the fact, and thereby be in that state of mind which is totally awake. Can we discuss that? And then we'll answer the question of loneliness, meditation, the importance or the unimportance of sex, from which apparently, according to somebody, all ambition, greed, and envy, and so on arise, which I question. Good God, if one thing, if it is only from one source, then it's fairly simple. Now, how does one find out for oneself, not according to our tendencies, not according to our experiences, because both experience and tendency limit the whole process of perception, seeing. Not according to any previous or present authority, but find out for oneself what is true. If that is of primary importance, and it is primary importance, and if one actually realizes that no one in heaven or on earth can teach us, no one can lead us, no one can give us love, clarity, a state of mind in which there is no confusion and conflict whatsoever. If one realizes, is it possible to realize that? To comprehend this whole problem, I think one has to understand for oneself the root of one's own existence, the roots of one's own psychological nutrition. I wonder how one can go about this. How would you, seeing the necessity that you, seeing the fact, the truth, that you cannot follow anybody, how will you, what will you do that you are on a road entirely by yourself, and you are. Though you may have relations, wives, children, property, and all the rest of it, you are actually on a road by yourself, aren't you? Not out of bitterness, not out of cynicism or despair, but it is an obvious fact that one walks alone. You may be in love, you may have a wife, you may have a job, but if you observe yourself little closely, you'll find you are alone. And you have to find out everything for yourself. Find out if there is such thing as God, what the implications of death is, what is meditation, what is this whole process of effort, and so on. You have to find it out for yourself, because there is nobody to tell you. And I don't think we realize this. If one realizes it, then what will you do? Please, I am putting you the question. What will you do? That is, if you actually realize, not verbally, not theoretically, but as a fact, which is a fact, that you are entirely by yourself. And you have to discover, find out, explore everything for yourself. No master, no guidepost, no savior, nothing. What will you do? Of course, if you come to that point of walking alone, then either you come to it naturally because it is so, or you come to it through despair, through vulgar cynicism. Or through the understanding of what someone has said. If you brush aside cynicism, the stupidity of accepting what another says, and you are confronted with this problem that you have to walk and that you are by yourself, what will you do? So first of all, one has to find out if one is actually alone, actually by oneself, if it is possible to be oneself. I don't know if I'm making myself clear. If you are the first man, which is impossible, of course, in this world, or rather, if you are the first man who understands all this, and you have to discover, what will you do? Madam, the lady says, it seems to me we observe.
Well, I think that if one is all alone, which I agree with you, as one is trying to discover all these things that you've been putting, one likes to discuss it and share your feelings with someone else.
There is nobody. We like to discuss, share, find out, test what we have discovered with somebody else. You're missing my point. Sorry, you're not. First of all, you're with your friends, you're married, you have children, you have had all the life behind and before. And don't you find for yourself that you're always in a state of isolation or loneliness, or that you have to do everything yourself inwardly, psychologically? Don't you find that? Don't you find that you can't rely on anybody? Neither on the priest, nor on a book, nor on anybody. Do you have still faith in someone? Huh? We shall listen to our inner voice. That's the most phony voice in the world. Good God. Do listen to me for 2 minutes, will you? Do you have any faith in anybody? Trust? Not, of course you must have faith, trust in technological and ordinary things. We're not talking at that level. But we're talking psychologically. Do you have any faith in the politician? In the books, in the philosophies, in the Bible, in the Indian sacred books, Zen? And do you have any faith even in the speaker? If you have, you shouldn't, at least not in the speaker. So, as you observe, you can't rely on anybody. You understand? For God, it's so simple, this. On nobody you can rely, because look what has happened. What we have relied on somebody, on priests, on philosophies, on psychologists, on some kind of specialist. And look what it has led us to. To wars. It has led us to 2 wars. And you know what wars are? It has led us to such superficiality of life, to drink, to various forms of escapes. And so how can you trust anybody? Do you trust anybody? I'm afraid you do, don't you? Oh, for God's sake, I'm not talking of books. We have finished, gone beyond books. We are talking of much more serious things than books. I'm just asking you, madam. You have no books. How can you trust what you read? And how can you trust your own mind? But madam, we are not... Look, sir, I've asked a very simple question. Do you have faith in anybody? In any book? Which means you have a faith in yourself. And when you read that book, you interpret that book according to your faith, to your feeling, to your knowledge, to your temperament, to your hope, to your despair. Oh God, this is all so infantile. So please answer this question to yourself, not to me. So if you have no trust in anybody whatsoever, because they have all led you astray, so then you begin to inquire rightly, don't you? Huh? If you have no trust in anybody, including your banker, then you would, and including naturally your gods, then you would look I'm sorry. What would happen to this world if you had no trust in the bank? At least that one thing is quite safe. When you observe the world, the endless misery, the unending anxiety, where all your leaders have led you to, the extraordinary persistency of starvation in the East and poverty, and the contradiction and the confusion of religious organizations with their dogmas, beliefs, rituals, and saviors. And when you see they can go to the moon and have photographs sent from the moon, 30 feet, 100 feet away from the moon. And yet man lives perpetually and seemingly endlessly in sorrow. And seeing all these extraordinary events outside and within, and the utter bewilderment of it all. How can one have any kind of trust in any kind of leader? And if you see that, not because you are cynical, betrayed, or that you haven't found the right leader, when you discard all leadership, all teachers, then your intelligence bound to show that you are by yourself. You have to do everything. You have to discover this reality for yourself, haven't you? Huh? Then how do you set about it? Not if you are what you are. Not if you are conditioned. You are the result of your particular culture, society, time, religion, education, technological influence, and the economic, social, artistic. You are what you are, that. You are the result of all that. And from there you have to start.
Perhaps if we can do the thing at hand.
Perhaps
If we can do the thing at hand.
not perhaps. All right, I see you don't. So there you are. You have followed, you are conditioned, you have read Freud, Jung, philosophies, and you have been to analysts, you have suffered, you have faced death, loneliness. You are that. You are the result of your society, of your food, of your culture, of your time, past and present. And from there you have to start, haven't you? That is, you have to start knowing yourself and nothing else, right? Is this puzzling? No. Huh? You are the result of 2 million years. You are the result of your society. You are that. And from there you have to start, haven't you? Huh? Now, that is, you have to know yourself. So that the importance of knowing oneself is that as you discover yourself, what you are, the ugly, the beautiful, the conflict, the sexual, all that, what you are, and knowing that, you begin to be free and thereby move, walk, inquire, search, look into. Isn't that so? Now, without knowing yourself, your tendencies, your appetites, your secret desires, the deep urges, compulsive demands. Without knowing that, you have no foundation. Therefore, you follow somebody. Isn't it? If I know myself, my inclinations, my subjective and objective pursuits, and know my tendencies, my motives, then I don't need anybody, need I? I don't have to follow anybody. I am a book to myself. In reading myself, I'll understand the whole structure of humanity. Not technological knowledge of how to go to the moon or operate, but I will know the whole structure of psychological human entity, won't I? And apparently, that's one of the most difficult things to do, to know oneself. Because first of all, we don't want to know ourselves. Because it's too much trouble, too much of a bother. God knows what one is going to discover. And also, it is too much an effort, too much, it demands something. Therefore you push it off and go to some book and tell you what to do, what not to do, and do this, and according to Jung, Freud, this and that. So if you really, seriously, deeply want to know yourself, which is so obvious, otherwise you are not clear, otherwise your mind is dull, repetitive, quoting some stupid authority. Anyhow, all authority is stupid anyhow, so you have to know yourself. And to know oneself demands the greatest art. It demands the greatest precision. And it demands intense work. And none of us want either precision, work, or clarity. Therefore we fool around endlessly. So, having said all that, let's proceed. I want to know myself. Not only the obvious, patent, observable myself, but also the myself that is deeply hidden, deeply evasive, which is astonishingly clever, and you can never put your finger on it and say, this is it. It's always slithering. And I want to know all of that. Not just parts of it, here and there. And also, to know myself, I must not bring previous knowledge of myself or the knowledge which I accumulate by observing. You see the importance of this? I wonder if you do. Look, I want to know myself. And I see the importance of it. And also I say, by Jove, to know myself, the first thing is, I must not judge. Which means I mustn't look at myself with the previous knowledge of myself. Right? Whether that knowledge be 10,000 years old or the knowledge of the experience which I had 10 minutes ago. Right? But do see the importance of this one fact. Because the myself To look at it, to understand it, I must come afresh to it. Each minute I must come afresh. And I can't look at it, I can't understand it, I can't see the nuances of it. If I say, well, it is too bad, it is like this, I kick it. I evaluate it, I condemn it, I compare it. Comparison, evaluation, judgment spring from the previous knowledge of myself. The previous knowledge which I have accumulated through experience, through tradition. So that I must clearly understand. Or not understand, it is so, it's obvious. The mind that judges the present, the me which is the present, that's very interesting, I won't go into that. That opens an extraordinary thing, doesn't it? The me that is the present. To understand the me that is the present, I must look at it. I must look at it with both eyes clearly focused on it, hear completely with my both ears and nerves, and I cannot do that if I bring my previous understanding, knowledge, experience, tradition, which will only prevent the complete listening to the me that is the present. Right? This is clear, isn't it? Right? Are you following this? Yes. And this is not because I say so, you see the truth of it. You follow not because I'm saying so. Burn the telephone, burn the speaker, that's not important. What is important is that you see it. Then you have freed the mind from the past so that it is capable of looking. Look, I'll take a very simple thing. Most people know what jealousy is, don't you? Huh? You all know what jealousy is, or is that strange thing? Right. Jealousy and envy. Jealousy being private, envy being of the public. We won't go into the differentiation of that. Now, that feeling arises. As it arises, you name it immediately, don't you? Right? You say, I'm jealous. Either you justify it, or you want to get rid of it. Now what happens? When that feeling arises, which is a new feeling, you understand? It's a new feeling. But the naming of it is the old response, the old symbolic verbal recognition. I wonder if you, right? The feeling is new, and you identify that feeling with the old word. Right? So, through the word, through the past experience, you have identified it and fixed it in memory, which becomes the old. Right? But when there is no verbal recognition of it, it remains something fresh. Right? But Instinct is to name it immediately. So to know myself, I not only have to see myself as I am, whatever that I am be, with fresh eyes. And therefore I must understand this whole process of naming, of condemning, of accumulating knowledge with which I look at myself as I am in the present. That prevents me from looking. That prevents me from seeing what actually I am. I hope you're following all this. Now, this demands a great deal of energy, doesn't it? To be on the spot, as it were, as every reaction arises, and not to perpetuate it, give it continuity through conflict with the past, as it is good or bad, I must get rid of it, judging, which only creates conflict, right? Are you getting tired? Right. So, conflict degenerates energy, wastes energy. And if you can look at yourself without wasting energy, which is without condemning, judging, recognizing, then you have that energy that is absolutely necessary to observe every movement of form, right? And you are the past. You are the history of mankind. You are the organizer of the religious thought. You are the church, you are the savior. You follow? You have invented all this. Your gods, your churches, your rituals, your saviors, you are responsible for this. So, you have to understand all this. So you are the whole treasure of mankind. You are not a separate individual from mankind. You are mankind. I wonder if you may have a separate name, a bank account, a house, a wife, children within a limited house, but you are mankind. Both the collective and the personal, right? You are all that. Therefore, in understanding every reaction, every state, nuance of your mind, then you don't have to read a thing. Then you know when you hate, when you are angry, when you are jealous, and you look at hate, despair, and all the rest of it. You look at it. You understand what I'm saying? Without naming it, without fixing it in memory, which takes place when you say it is hate and give it continuity. I wonder. So you begin to know yourself. And you begin to know what it is to look at yourself with complete quietness. You understand? With complete quietness. And that quietness comes naturally, sweetly, without unbidden. If you understand this whole process of naming, of giving continuity to the feeling that arises, then out of that quietness, real stillness of the mind, and therefore of the brain, and therefore of the nerves, then you can look. You understand? Then you can observe life. So self-knowledge is the beginning and the ending of sorrow. And without knowing yourself, you might play every kind of trick. Sorrow will never end. And a mind that is in sorrow is an unhealthy, neurotic mind. Even for a day, if it be in sorrow, it is an unhealthy mind. And out of this self-knowing and out of the ending of sorrow, you will know then what is that extraordinary state in which there is love, death and creation. You know, I don't know if you ever observed how those three always go together. We are talking of creation, not of painting, writing, or invention. You cannot possibly come to that state of creation without knowing yourself. The painters, the modern painters, the painter who has periods of blue painting and the rest of it, you know, changing varieties, playing tricks with the public. Because he's become terribly popular and therefore very rich, and he wants to play things, impose, you know, all the tricks they play. That's not creation at all. That's all too silly and obvious. Therefore, without knowing yourself, there is no love. There is hate, there is pleasure, there is agony, suspicion, bitterness, jealousy. But that's nothing to do with love. A man who is jealous does not know what it means to love. And without knowing love, you will never know what death is. You will see it in a hearse being burnt along a bank of a river. Or be afraid of it. But you'll never know the extraordinary nature of it, the beauty of it. No, and you will not know what creation is without knowing, without being in that state of love and death. And it is only when there is this state of mind which has understood, which has finished with the knowing of itself, then there is love, then there is death, then there is creation. And beyond that, all words, all symbols, all expression have no meaning at all. I'm sorry I've talked so long, I didn't realize it. Shall we discuss? We've got a few minutes left. Or would you like to stop? Huh? What's it? Huh? Stop? I'm delighted.